All right, so let's move from the sweaty t-shirt idea and talk about something more practical. What happens when you want to break a limerent spell? And also, what about the surprisingly complicated, even toxic side of the so-called cuddle hormone? Let's start with the detox. If limerence behaves like an addiction, and neurologically it often does, then tapering off usually doesn't work very well. Your brain's reward system has become hypersensitized to one specific stimulus. That person, every message, every photo, every tiny sign of attention. It's like your dopamine receptors are primed and waiting. So, the first rule of breaking limerence cold turkey. In addiction science, this is often called no contact. And yes, that includes checking their Instagram just to see. Every time you peek, you trigger a dopamine spike. Even if it's painful, it still feeds the loop. You reset your recovery clock. To weaken the neural pathway, you have to starve it. Then there's something counterintuitive, but powerful. Make a floor list. When you're in limerence, dopamine dampens activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for critical thinking. You are biologically biased toward idealization, so you have to manually re-engage logic. Write down every incompatibility, every red flag, every behavior that didn't sit right. And when the craving hits, read it. Force your brain to balance the illusion. It feels mechanical, but that's the point. Next comes dopamine replacement. When you cut off the person, your brain goes into deficit. It wants its reward back. If you don't provide alternative dopamine sources, you'll relapse. Exercise works well because it stimulates dopamine and endorphins. So do new hobbies. So do challenging projects that create a sense of progress and mastery. You're not suppressing desire, you're retraining the reward system. And then there's the part nobody likes hearing. Time. Neural pathways don't disappear overnight. Habit circuits, especially emotionally charged ones, can take around 90 days or more to significantly weaken. The brain literally has to prune and rewire. It's slow, but it works. Now, let's shift to oxytocin. Oxytocin is often marketed as the love hormone, the cuddle chemical, the trust molecule, but neuroscientists sometimes describe it more accurately as a social highlighter. It amplifies bonding, yes, but it also amplifies division. Oxytocin strengthens feelings toward your in-group, your partner, your family, your tribe, and can increase defensiveness or hostility toward perceived outsiders. That's where the darker side appears. First, jealousy. Oxytocin increases emotional sensitivity. In a secure relationship, that sensitivity translates into empathy and closeness. In an insecure relationship, it can morph into hypervigilance, suspicion, obsessive checking. You become chemically invested in protecting the bond. Sometimes that feels like love, sometimes it feels like fear. Second, tribalism. Some studies suggest that increased oxytocin can heighten ethnocentrism, stronger preference for people like us, and more suspicion toward them. It deepens loyalty, but it can also narrow perspective. Bonding and bias are two sides of the same coin. And then there's the hardest truth. Oxytocin can help people stay in abusive relationships because it fosters deep trust and attachment. It can chemically reinforce loyalty even in the face of harm. The bond feels sacred. The separation feels unbearable. Logic says leave. The bonding circuitry says hold on. That's why trauma bonds can feel so powerful. The chemistry of attachment doesn't automatically shut off when behavior becomes toxic. So, if we summarize this chemically, we see something fascinating. Dopamine motivates, it excites, It drives pursuit, but it also fuels addiction and obsession. Oxytocin builds trust, empathy, and closeness, but it can intensify jealousy, tribalism, and blind loyalty. Serotonin stabilizes mood and contentment, but when serotonin drops, as in limerence, obsessive thought loops can take over. None of these chemicals are good or bad. They are tools, double-edged ones. The same system that lets you bond deeply can trap you. The same system that drives passion can destabilize you. Understanding that doesn't remove emotion, but it does give you something powerful: perspective.